actually didn't watch any of the Edmonton Oilers because I was mad that the team allowed any politician to suit up and skate with them and do all that nonsense in the middle of an election campaign. And I would feel the same way no matter what party it was. I think that people's cherished sports teams should be their thing. And the moment that politicians get involved, I mean, it all turns to skunk. And then they started doing well. And I like the Oilers, and I'm so superstitious that I'm like, okay, since I haven't watched them at all, I can't watch them now. I don't jinx them, but I guess I must have already jinxed them or something because that's why they lost.
Yeah, Kris, a lot of Canadians had similar reactions. Of course, when we saw Mark Carney come for their practice, they were getting blasted by fans saying, what are you doing letting this politician into the sport we love? And then, of course, famed hockey personality Ryan Whitney deemed the Carney curse because, of course, Carney comes and then everyone gets injured. And which kind of rehashed after the Oilers just lost. Some people were saying, hey, Florida's just the better team, but others were saying that the Carney curse was in the end insurmountable because injury troubles did not stop for the Oilers in the playoffs. Obviously, their second best goal scorer, Zach Hyman, didn't play a single game in the last series due to injury.
Oh my.
So, yeah, the Carney curse seemed to be something that the Oilers couldn't get over this year.
Alex, what got me is that it's the Oilers. Edmonton Oilers, and the dude that suited up for them and took a bunch of pictures wants 80% of our oil to stay in the ground. It was the weirdest juxtaposition.
Yeah, I was just glad we don't have the goalie to blame for once.
All right, let's see how their golf swing is. Let's get this thing started. Welcome to Off the Record. My name is Kris Sims. I'm the Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I'm sitting in the host's chair today, so everybody buckle up and please be gentle. Some of the topics on this show are... I'm just going to throw them at you guys. Isaac and Alex, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start off the top that I can really dig my teeth into this one. Who was this guy? Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He's like a new man. Like, so for those of us who've been in the arena for a while, people often say you don't really turn to small government, like lower taxes, accountability, tough on crime, until you are a liberal who's been mugged. And here we are. This was kind of crazy. All of a sudden I saw the premier talking about getting really tough on crime. Isaac, did this surprise you?
Yeah, no, it shocked me, Kris, when I watched this press conference in its entirety, especially with Ford's recent, he might have been over the recent, especially over the election recently, conservatives across the country have been questioning Ford and his allegiances, especially with how he behaved with the federal Conservative Party and talking about them. But now, all of a sudden, we're seeing these press conferences and I'm reading through the transcript and quote after quote after quote. I'm like, he said this? Like, it's just ridiculous things that he's saying. Like really good things for conservatives. Well, some good things. For example, the story we're talking about today, he actually said that Canada should have a castle law, which for those who don't know, a castle doctrine is a legal principle that is active in many U.S. states, which essentially allows a homeowner to use self-defense, including lethal force against an intruder without any obligation to retreat, essentially. So if someone comes into your home, you could kill them, essentially. That's what the castle law is, if they threaten your life. And then some of the quotes Ford was saying, he's like, yeah, no, if someone breaks into your house and you're protecting your kids, like you'll do whatever it takes. He listed a bunch of weapons you could grab, like a hammer, a knife. Like, I'm like, oh my, he's saying this stuff. It's crazy. And there is no small coincidence that Ford was carjacked literally, I think, the night before this happened. So he was absolutely heated. I mean, this was emotion that I've never seen from Ford. And obviously he also said, hey, look, I'm a premier. I have 2 police cars were on my property just watching me because he has special RCMP detail or whatever. But most Canadians don't have that luxury. And when you're getting carjacked, you don't have police there on the ready to help you. And then he even took it a step further because, of course, some of you guys may remember there was that recent story where the homeowner shot his gun at home invaders recently in Toronto, and he was among those who got charged. So that's another thing that influenced Ford's speech here. Ford said that that homeowner only shot the gun in the air. I don't know whether that was confirmed based on the other stories I read, but he went as far as saying, Ford did, that he was going to start a fundraiser for this person and cover his legal costs. And he even said he should get a medal for standing up for himself. I
He
mean,
just kept talking. Like, from a
yeah.
comms staffer perspective, I was just like, he just kept on saying this stuff.
And then he kept going. He attacked the judges. He attacked the Liberal government. He said he called the judges weak-kneed for just basically letting people out on bail. But I will say, and Alex knows better about this, but in the judges' defense, they can't do much with the catch and release policies from the federal government. And I mean, I could go on for minutes and minutes and talking about all the things Ford said, but I feel like I'm hijacking the conversation here.
No,
pun
it's a
intended.
big one.
So Alex, if you want to maybe just talk about the judge aspect or something, I don't know.
Yeah, a few things on this. I totally agree with Kris. People's opinions on crime change a lot, of course, when you become a victim of crime.
Mhm.
Kind of reminds me of that Mike Tyson quote where it's like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Yeah, that's kind of what happened here with Ford. But on the matter of the law, it's interesting because a lot of people don't understand this very well. In Canada, you don't even have the right to preemptive self-defense in terms of thought. So this came up during the Coots trial, which is really interesting because those fellas had guns somewhere near in the vicinity of the big protest that happened, in solidarity with the protest in Ottawa. And they had those guns, they said, in court for the purpose of defending themselves in the unlikely event that the government started shooting at women and children. They were deemed to be in possession of weapons for a dangerous purpose. And what the judge basically explained in court transcripts, which we now have access to, and I'll be writing about it later, is in Canada, if you picked up, for instance, a hammer in your house and said, this would make a great weapon to defend myself with against a home intruder, you are in possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. You are not even allowed to have the thought of defending yourself. So for Doug Ford to make these comments, which are so contrary to the actual laws in Canada, I found very fascinating and interesting.
I found it interesting too. So, taking off my CTF hat, although we do spend a shocking amount of money on the criminal justice system, so there is a huge cost to taxpayers. So that should just be understood. Second, I was a court reporter like you, Alex, for years and years for TV and radio and print. And I lost track of the number of times I just watched people walk through. They might as well put literally a revolving door on the rooms because, it would save on their air conditioning bills, because they're just in and out, in and out, in and out. To your point exactly, I think a lot of folks who are law-abiding, they don't come into contact with courts. So the most they'll ever get is maybe a speeding ticket from a police officer or something, maybe once or twice in their lives. And so we watch all of this news and drama and media come from the United States, which has a very different approach to exactly what you're talking about. So you're right. We do not have any form of castle law in Canada. In fact, I would describe it more as the reverse. The intent that you have with whatever objects you have around you, super important. So just as a note, I would recommend that people who have this sort of stuff in mind and who talk about things like this, read up on it before you start talking about it. So for example, if you are a legal law-abiding firearms owner, of course, the only reasons you have such things are for hunting and target shooting. Those are the only two reasons you can legally own a firearm in Canada, period. Now, most folks understand that that's the case. Like ranchers use it as a tool, right, to put down pests and things like that. And so it's just an understood thing. So this is, again, why, as a comms person, my jaw was kind of hanging open at the premier saying this stuff. What kind of surprises me most is that I don't think he knew this. Like, he seems to be unaware of what you just pointed out, Alex, of the difference between intention and what we are allowed to do within our homes.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, either he doesn't understand the law or he hates it.
Well, if it's the
You're
latter,
left with two options.
he is a premier and he might want to, pick up the horn and maybe talk to his friend, Prime Minister Mark Carney. What got me from a Taxpayers Federation perspective is that in the middle of the election, okay, It was a trade union. I still can't believe this. I'll be surprised about this for the rest of my life. A trade union, the Pipe and Steelworkers Union out of Hamilton, were so worried about Carney's looming industrial carbon tax, which is going to happen. They were so worried about this. They said it was going to decimate their industry. They were ringing all the fire bells. They endorsed Pierre Poilievre instead. And Ford, who is the Premier of Ontario, where most of our steel industry is located, right there, those are, his voters, nothing. Crickets. Absolute crickets. Said nothing about the industrial carbon tax, never challenged Carney on it one bit. Whereas we've got Scott Moe out here who was, saying we're not doing any of this. Danielle Smith froze it. She needs to get rid of it completely. But other premiers were standing up to him over this. So I guess that's why I'm just kind of surprised to see this brand new Premier Ford, Isaac.
Yeah, a few things I'll say about Ford. Firstly, in his defense, he did say in this press conference that he was going to bring it up with Carney, and he's basically also criticized them for saying they'd do something about it over the last decade and obviously not doing anything. And in fact, he made a joke. I mean, not much of a joke in a way, but he basically said, look, the 4 suspects who were trying to carjack him are probably already out on bail. And then a few quotes I'll highlight from him. He said, this next one is a joke, by the way. He said, they're going to be back out. Why don't you guys come over for a barbecue tonight? I'll take care of you better than the police. And thank God the police got you, and I never did. And then he said, I'm sick and tired of the weak justice system that we have. We need to start throwing these people in jail. This is turning into a lawless society. So these are super strong words from Ford. And taking it to another kind of funny aspect, obviously, we saw the Toronto police, I think it was, previously tell homeowners to leave their keys at the doors so they don't get home invaded, because then the robbers will just see the keys and take your car, so they won't invade your home and harm you. That's the best thing you can do, guys. Leave your keys at the door. So that's not premeditative self-defense, but whatever the opposite of self-defense is.
Yeah, the leave the keys at the door thing, that made international news. That was on New York Post, that made Fox, probably made a couple of papers over in the UK. We actually have a clip here of Premier Ford because I think it's important for you guys to listen to it in your own words. Let's take a listen.
Did you hear about the guy that these thugs came up, ready to steal his car? They're all in their masks and everything. So I guess he was a hunter or something. He shot up in the air. I don't recommend that, by the way. But he gets charged. I got to find out this guy's name and number, and I'm going to hold a fundraiser for lawyer fees for him. He should get a medal for standing up. It's like down in the U.S., we should have the castle law. Someone breaks into your house, and I know any of these people here, someone breaks into your house, and they're coming after your kids, and you're coming after your spouse, you're going to fight like you've never fought before. You're going to use anything that you have, be it weapons, baseball bats, knives. You're protecting your family. These thugs shouldn't be coming in there.
Yeah, that was something else. Again, that was a very different sort of Premier Ford. In fact, that was the Doug Ford that I remembered from, he was even on our show once. He had his own show with his late brother one time at Sun News Network. And I remember Doug and Rob Ford talking like this. So that's what I kind of remembered. Be interesting to see I'll get into this quickly with you, Alex, before we move on to our next story. But can you describe a little bit about C5? So a lot of people were talking about this. It's basically where the federal government, correct me if I'm wrong, has instructed judges to give the most lenient possible punishment for the briefest amount of time possible. Is that kind of the wording of this?
Yeah, so Bill C5 and Bill C75 are kind of two wings of the same bird, so to speak.
Okay.
So they both intend to make the justice system more equitable and more fair is generally the idea. The concept is that racialized people, as the legislation spells it out, were overrepresented in the legal system. And so in order to make things more fair and equitable, they would just provide bail on the least onerous conditions possible. Interestingly enough, I attend a lot of bail hearings, and I would say that it's still like overrepresented by racialized people, however you want to define that. So I'm not really sure how this legislation is supposed to work, right? Like maybe it's just possible, and at the risk of sounding a bit discriminatory, that like certain people are just committing more crimes. And specifically with regards to Indigenous people, What has happened is you are now seeing people who are not Indigenous going to reserves and using those places to produce and manufacture drugs, and they're using them as hubs for trafficking of drugs and people and all sorts of things, because they're now essentially legal safe zones. If you have somebody who's going to be treated in the legal justice system more leniently on account of their race, then that makes that person an actual very attractive runner for drugs, for crime. And so people are now being recruited into crime on account of the fact that they're more likely to be sent back out onto the streets in this revolving door justice system. So the legislation just doesn't achieve what it intended to, in my opinion. And I actually think that, as is often the case, the path to hell is paved by good intentions.
I think it ultimately gets back to accountability. I think it's been pointed out many times that a few dozen criminals in Vancouver commit thousands and thousands of the same crimes. Like, these police officers must be getting tired of seeing the same faces. And this is the issue, that the crime just keeps getting committed by a very tiny group of people, and that incurs costs, and it constantly causes problems for people who are on the outside, because their property is getting ripped off, people are getting assaulted on buses, etc. And so I do think it does get down to accountability. And folks, if you don't like it, make sure you are on your local politicians, including your municipal politicians. So if you're in Vancouver and you're sick of the crime, you should be at city council meetings. You should be contacting your city councilor all the time, and then writing to your provincial and federal levels and saying, this is an issue for me. It's a voting issue for me. If you don't fix it, I'm going to door knock against you. I would give this advice on any topic that people feel really passionately about. I want to stick with justice really quick here. There was something that came up at the Justice Committee, and I think former True North host Andrew Lawton was playing a role here. Who wants to take this one away?
Yeah, I wrote the article. I would love to. So
Go for it.
on the subject of bail reform, Andrew Lawton is a member of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights, which typically their mandate is to deal with issues related to the Department of Justice and laws in the criminal code. And so these would be the people that would be the caretakers for dealing with, in my opinion, dysfunctional pieces of legislation like Bill C-5 and Bill C-75. Instead, what they did is they appointed Mark Miller as the chair of the Justice Committee. And he mostly spoke about being respectful, about decorum. He talked about the importance of lunch breaks to avoid hangriness and to promote solidarity. And then they just adjourned the meeting and said, let's go for summer break, which Andrew Lawton was quite rightly, in my opinion, outraged by.
Did he actually bring up lunch?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wrote about it in the article. He said we need to combat hangriness. He also talked about the importance of people not slamming down their headphones in outrage, feigned or otherwise, he said. So I think, I was just thinking about this a few moments ago, what the Liberal strategy is with regards to the issue of crime is, first, they're going to gaslight you. It's just like housing. They're going to say it's not an issue. And then when that ceases to be effective, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, this is not our responsibility. It's the province's responsibility, right? So they're going to gaslight, and then they're going to obfuscate. You can see it from the very beginning. And yeah, that's essentially, I think, what the strategy is. And
I don't know if this is going to fly, because I think normal working people who don't make $300,000 per year plus, like that cabinet minister who was actually talking out loud about hangriness, makes, and they live in normal working neighborhoods, are tired of crime. And they're tired of them not seeing good value for their taxes. Again, close to half of what you make goes into taxes. So imagine what lands in your bank account if you're on salary every 2 weeks. Picture it, double it. That's how much governments, plural, are taking from you, including to pay for a so-called justice system. So you should ask yourself if you're getting good value for money here. Isaac, did any of this take you by surprise? I, for one, am very happy that Andrew Lawton is on this committee, because the guy sharpens his pencil and does his homework. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, a few quick words I wanted to make about Lawton on this committee, because obviously I've written a few articles about this, but a theme is emerging with Lawton exposing his counterparts for not knowing anything about the files they're on. Kris, here you are talking about the salaries and the lifestyle they live, and yet they can't answer basic questions about their file. What are you doing at your job? What do you do with your time? You don't know the most fundamental question of your file. For example, Andrew Lawton recently exposed the minister responsible for Canada's public service because he was unable to explain why bureaucracy was increasing faster than the country's population. He asked some very simple questions. How have nearly 100,000 bureaucrats been added since 2016? No idea. But this mirrored a similar exchange, which I'm sure many people saw, between Lawton and Public Safety Minister Gary Ananda Sangri, which revealed he too could not answer the most basic fundamental questions about Canada's gun laws. Andrew is asking him basic questions that you might even think a normal Canadian would know the answer to, just having ever looked at Canada's gun laws. Nothing. So yeah, Lawton is obviously doing the great job as an opposition member, exposing these ministers who know nothing about their files. I mean, it's crazy, and it leaves you scratching your head with, how do these Liberal ministers get appointed to these files, and what are they doing with their time where they can't answer the most fundamental, basic questions about them?
And for folks who are like, oh, well, is it fair to, I don't know, quiz people about the populations of certain countries that they're getting engaged with, and saying that isn't fair? No, this case, it was the public safety minister, okay, who the best part of his answer he did with Lawton, in my opinion, as a law-abiding legal firearms owner, was that at the end of it, the minister said, this isn't about law-abiding firearms owners. No,
Exactly.
This is exactly what this gun
It's
ban.
entirely about law-abiding gun owners.
This actually has nothing to do with the criminals and gangbangers who no reasonable person would be upset about if you're taking their guns away. No, that's the entire point. And that's what kind of mystifies me. It's like, does he really think that there's this huge vocal organized opposition against his law because we want thugs and criminals to not have illegal guns?
On that point, Kris, it strikes me as ironic because the Liberals are constantly accusing the Conservatives of importing American politics into Canada. Now, in the United States, you do actually have an issue of legal gun owners committing mass shootings. We don't really have that in Canada. I mean, when was the last time a legal gun owner in Canada went on a mass shooting?
Great
it's
question.
Like 99% of the guns and crimes are illegally obtained, so it just doesn't happen.
The police themselves, okay, so the cops on the front lines, the guys and gals, the police unions say repeatedly, this is not the place to go. Like, could you please give us more resources, more time, more focus to catch the gun runners and the gangbangers and the bad guys and gals who are illegally using guns? Typically speaking, there are rare outliers, but typically speaking, it is not the ranchers and the hunters and the folks who have gone through all of the safety courses with the government that are the ones who are committing the crimes here. The cops themselves say this.
In that Justice Committee meeting as well, Larry Brock made a really good point. I mean, the Liberals, this is another one of those things where there's some cognitive dissonance going on here. They love to talk about adhering to the expert advice. And Larry Brock says, well, on this point, we have expert advice, right? The heads of police associations, these are the experts. Nikki Sharma, who is the Attorney General of BC, the most liberal province, is asking for the Liberals to reconfigure the laws that are allowing this revolving justice system to continue.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Even the Attorney General of BC is saying this is too much.
Wow.
So they're just not listening to the experts. They're not listening to the experts. They're importing American politics. They're doing everything that they accuse the Conservatives of doing.
People just want results, and they want good government, and they want them to quit wasting. Speaking of wasting, do we want to chat about the river? Okay.
Yeah.
So shout out to Jake. Okay. He is our amazing research guru with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And Jake, like any good tax fighter, doesn't like government waste. And he lives in Alberta, and he did a Freedom of Information request to find out that Calgary taxpayers paid more than $65,000 to set up a telephone line so that people can phone the river. Like, that isn't the name of a business. These arty people set up a telephone line so that human beings can telephone like the Bow River. Like, hello. Okay. number one, I know art is subjective. Okay, whatever you're into, you're into. I understand. If phoning a river floats your boat, that's great. Pay for it yourself. Don't make your neighbors pay for this.
This is a reflection of a quote that I heard that I turn over in my mind all the time. It's the age of communication, but people have never communicated less.
That is so well done. So I looked into this a little bit more, and Jake looked into this a little bit more, and the amount of money, okay, the millions of dollars that Calgary City Hall spends on this art slush fund, okay, would cover the entire property tax bill for 7,000 Calgary households. So again, this is the same Calgary City Hall that cries broke every 5 minutes and blames the premier for it, okay, and doesn't know how to fix a water main, all right? But they will turn around and blow $65,000 on a telephone art project to call the river. I will point out two things. One, the phone number doesn't work. Good job, guys. If you phone it, you actually get put through to this, Calgary Art Slush Fund voicemail. Two, they have spent so much money on this the last little while. This is actually a repeat of a project they did back in 2014. And get this, they wanted to switch it to a local 403 number instead of a 1-855 number so that they give power and ownership back to the river. I'm sorry. And there was communication. These are all based on documents obtained by the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. And we got a hold of some emails, and one City Hall employee, bless his or her heart, said, a downside could be that this will be seen as a foolish waste of money. Isaac, you're stunned. Are you all right?
Yeah, no, just so many things going through my head. Let's just operate for a second in the fantasy world where phoning the river is a grave concern that needs to be addressed. This just brings up the public versus private sector investment. I mean, it's insane. $65,000 to set up a phone line? What are you doing? I probably could have called Jimmy in the Yellow Pages to do it for like $100. I mean, what are we talking about? 65,000. What was the money spent on? And then it doesn't even work. It doesn't even work. You spent $65,000. It doesn't even work. I mean, it's ridiculous. Plus, now that you mention it, it's kind of funny. I would love to just listen in on those phone calls of people calling the river. And I was like, I wonder what they're saying to the river. Like, let me get in on that line and just listen to the calls and just be like, what's going on with the river talk here?
I wonder if that was recorded. Oh, we're going to FOI that. That's a great idea.
You're welcome, Chris.
Okay, and for folks who are upset or like, why are you guys laughing? Okay, number one, you either laugh or you cry, okay? Like, when it comes to government, like, you cannot let these guys get you down. Do not let them black pill you, okay? Because then they win. Number two, they hate it when we laugh at them. Like, I guarantee you, if any of those, like, nerds at this arts council gets a hold of this and watches this, they're going to be so upset. Like, pearl clutching, like all of the pearls will be right here. They'll be so upset.
I don't hate the idea if it makes them feel any better. I mean, if it was $600,
no,
which I think would be a fair, not even.
Okay, again, people's opinion of art is different. That's fine. Never make your neighbor pay for it. Not one bit. If your idea to phone the river, Alex, is like awesome and spiritual and stuff, I do respect that. Hit up a donor. Seriously, find a donor, okay? Even a nonprofit group or something. Go find a riverkeeper group or something and say, can we raise money to do this? Because I think it'll raise awareness about the heart of the river and the health of the river and how important it is. That's totally cool. Government art should be a contradiction in terms.
Alex, if you really want to call the river and you happen to have 65 grand laying around, I'll fly out tomorrow and I'll get it set up for you. Guaranteed.
I don't want to call the river. I'm trying to play. I'm a contrarian. I don't know. I mean, I like art generally, but I agree. I think that government art is an oxymoron for sure.
It's so gross. All right. The next one is our kicker, and I am not gonna make eye contact with this story. Sorry, fellas. This is this is going to be your thing. Speaking of strange wastes of money, I wanted to just throw this at you guys, Isaac and Alex. This was a story that strangely surfaced earlier this week. I will say that it does end well. So for folks who are listening who are getting upset, I would say, thankfully, that accountability won the day.
It was a rare victory for common
A rare
sense.
victory. And that it is super important to always be in contact with your levels of government, including your school boards. So here in Alberta, we can recall school board administrators if they screw up. In Ontario, you can't do that, but this is still a good finish to this story. Pull it up here. Let's take a look. Okay.
Yeah, I could take it away, Chris, if you don't want to, because I know.
Please, Alex. Please, Isaac. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, this video surfaced online that showed a male bus driver stepping out of this bus wearing, as you can see, a pink pleated skirt, thigh-high stockings, and a sailor-style top. And then there was a sign in the front window, which you can barely see, which reads Lolita Line, which is the most concerning aspect, if you can believe that, to me, because of what Lolita Line might signify. And I'll let you guys...
Yeah, I didn't know what this meant. So
Yeah, so basically Lolita was popularized by Vladimir Nabokov's 1955 novel of the same name, in which an adult male narrator sexually exploits a 12-year-old girl, and in modern usage is often associated with a subculture involving the sexualization of young girls. So that's what this bus driver is doing. You guys could take away from that whatever you want, although... Just getting on the good news aspect, the York Catholic District School Board did confirm that this driver was removed pretty quickly right after this all surfaced. But the fact that the parents had to confront him, I mean, that this was even allowed to happen for a second is certainly concerning. Although at least the parents can rest easy tonight, knowing that this person has been fired. And I don't know what this bus driver was thinking, and that they maybe get away with it, but could it be related to the drag queen story hour we've been seeing take place across all the schools and the glorification of this kind of behavior? I mean, it certainly is not an easy story to read. I'll say that much. What do you think, Alex?
So I'll be honest with you, I did not interact with this story at all because it reminded me a lot of the prosthetics breast guy in Ontario. Remember the shop teacher who had the giant fake hooters or whatever you want to call them? I don't know. So I saw this. I was like, there's just no way this is real, was my first reaction. I just could not believe it was a real story. Now, we were talking off air about how the prosthetic breast fellow, we think that maybe he was engaging in some type of satire. I will open it up to the group. Is it possible the bus driver is doing the same thing? It's Pride Month. He saw a bunch of crazy stuff that he just can't abide by and decided that he was also going to go on a one-man mission to reveal the absurdity of all this. Is that possible? I don't know. I'm curious.
I'll say anything's possible, but just based on the context and the information I read in the story and what I kind of saw online, I don't see that as likely at all. Whereas with the prosthetic breast thing, I think people kind of knew from the jump that it was satire, and I don't even know. He might have even gone as far as like he was protesting against them. I think he might have even publicly stated that, whereas this doesn't seem to be the same.
I think we don't have enough information. However, I was surprised. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. It made international news. It was in the New York Post. And as a parent and somebody who likes accountability in government, the good news is this was dealt with instantly from the looks of it. So like the same day that I saw this floating around on X, I saw the same sort of thing saying, yeah, this is no longer happening, period. So that individual.
Yeah, I'm happy to see that too.
You know, It's not some long drawn out thing where people have to deal with it. And again, I will bring this back to the good ending, and the good message of this story is it's really important to stay engaged. So parents, it doesn't matter who you are, if you've got kids or not, okay? No matter what area of government it is, stay engaged, okay? Stay connected with this kind of stuff. If you see something, say something, okay? Make sure you take it to the higher authorities. Make sure you are the squeaky wheel, because that is the only way that you can make sure that you are getting action on things and making change that you want to see happen. Folks, I'm going to leave you with that very strange story. But the good news is that it was resolved quickly from the sounds of it. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And remember, everything that we have said is off the record.
Do you think it is possible that this guy is like the prosthetic breast guy? I mean, it's an interesting question.
Like I said, anything's
we know?
possible. It just doesn't seem likely. Whereas with the prosthetic breast guy, as I said from the jump, I think that was kind of a known thing. Whereas this guy, I don't know. And also,
Strange thing
how
to
long
do,
had he
even
been
if it
doing
was
this for? Like,
miracle, though,
has it been
you know?
months? Like, I don't know.
I always, from my experience, I know I sound like Gandalf because I'm older than you both, but what you first see is almost never the case. There's always, in my
Right.
experience, something extra. So I don't know.